Hello. I'm going to demonstrate some colored pencil techniques today. So the first one is Sgraffito. And what I've done is I've gone underneath and put some yellow, orange, and red down. Then I burnished it down with a blender so it would be solid. And then I went over top of it with black. And you can use a Sgraffito tool like we use for scratchboard, and then I can scratch through that black and reveal the colors underneath. One other thing that I want to show with this is sometimes after a year or two, colored pencils can fog or get a bloom on them. And so you can remove that by just taking a soft cloth and getting that wax bloom off. You can see the difference from with the wax bloom and after. Next is cross hatching. We've done that quite a bit before, but in colored pencil, you could go with, say, yellow lines and then add orange lines into it, and then maybe red lines into that to create new colors. Next, I want to talk about when we're kids, we work in coloring books and we put one color next to another. It's like a rainbow. So you might put down yellow, and then you might put down orange, and you fill in certain areas of the coloring book, and then you might put down red. We don't want to do that in colored pencil. All right? What we want to do is blend the colors together. So I'm going to start out with yellow very softly, and then add more pressure, and then fade it out. And then I'll go in with orange and just very little pressure, and then get more pressure, and then fade it out. So I'll spill one color into the other so that they gradually blend together. And then I'm going to go in with red very lightly, more pressure, and then lighten up. Red violet. So you have this gradual change from one color to the other. The more hues that you use, the more interesting your drawing is going to be. This is what we want, a nice blended drawing. Next, I've put down some marker, and I can go over that marker with another color of colored pencil. And so the marker will show through. This is done quite a bit in architectural drawings. You can also do stippling with colored pencil. Stippling is dots, and this would be like pointillism, where I could also change the colors. Here's violet, then I'm adding blue violet into it. Blue to make blue violet. And then I could add red into it to make red violet. So you could build up a whole drawing that way. It would take a lot of time, but you could do that. Next is linear pressure. We've talked about that, how you can start out very lightly and then add more pressure, and then lighten up, and then more pressure. Light, dark, light, more pressure. Darker lines are going to advance. They're going to come towards you. The next technique is strikes, and that's where you start out with a lot of pressure and then less pressure. So a lot, less. If you were creating the illusion of grass, you'd start out with light or dark and go to light. Again, tonal pressure, you can make an entire swatch, very little color and then darker and darker. And you can see that I'm working on charcoal pastel paper, and so the grain is coming through. So you can vary the pressure from light to dark. The next technique is impress line, and with that I have a piece of tracing paper and I've done a drawing on it of a leaf, and I'm going to go over those lines with as much pressure as I can have without going through the tracing paper. Sometimes we accidentally make impress lines. You might remember that from the perspective drawing where we made lines and then we did the portrait drawing and some lines showed up that we didn't want. Here we want lines. So I'm drawing these lines in on the tracing paper, but they're not going to show up. Then I'm going to take that off and I'm going to go over top. You can see that a lot of times I hold quite a few pencils at a time. I'm going to use the side of the pencil, and it helps if it's a darker value. That will make the leaf show up better. And you can see that's starting to appear. I go in all different directions. You could use this technique to show the veins in a leaf like I did, or just a design in the background. You can use a duster if you have some crumbs to get rid of that. Next is powder. We've created some powder in some of our drawings. And you can use a file and file off the colored pencil. And then you could mash it in with your finger or a piece of cloth to make a nice subtle effect. Now, your colored pencil drawings can be left grainy, or you can burnish them down. So I'm going to start here and just do a drawing. And because this is on pastel paper, you're going to see the grain or the tooth of the paper. You can leave it like that, that's totally fine, or you can burnish it down with a blender. So here's the difference. This one's grainy. Here's a blender. It just has plastic encased in wood. And I'm going to go in and blend that down into the grooves of the paper to make a nice solid color. If you burnish it, it's going to be a much darker, richer, more solid color than just leaving it grainy. And we've talked about color theory, how if you put down yellow. Colored pencils are transparent, so if you put down yellow and then you put blue into it, it's going to create green. Those colors are going to mix together because they're transparent. So you have to think about your color theory. If you put down purple, and put yellow into it, it's going to make a neutral or gray color. So let me just show you a few more things. One is it's best to sharpen your color pencils with one of these handheld pencil sharpeners. They don't work very well sharpening in the electric pencil sharpeners, and sometimes they clog up, so you can take a T-pin and just clean them out that way. Or there's these little pencil sharpeners like this that you can use. So these sharpen pretty well that way. And then I wanted to show you a few other things. We do have watercolor pencils that you can use. You can draw with the pencils and then add water into them, and they will look like watercolor. Here's a few other techniques. I've used canary yellow here and poppy red to make an orange. This makes a much more interesting orange than orange right out, just the orange colored pencil. I showed you strikes. Here's hatching and then cross hatching going in different directions. We have rubbing plates that you can use to put under your paper and then go over top of them with colored pencil. And then there are different colors of paper that you can use. If you work on white paper, it's going to make your colored pencils the brightest because they're transparent. Here's a little darker, and you can see it's a lot duller on black. So you do need to consider that when you select your paper, that your colored pencils, because they're transparent, are never going to be as bright as they are on white paper. I have Paris paper that you can work on. This has the plate surface. It's very smooth. Sometimes students don't like to work on paper with a grain. So this is the Paris paper. I also have what's called vellum, and vellum is translucent. I've drawn here on the white paper and then on the vellum, and when you put that over top, the colors from underneath are going to come through and you're going to see the different layers. And I believe that's it.